Hey guys, it's Michelle from Cozyegg, and today is Wednesday, August 8th, 2018, and this is episode 58. So it's been about 3 weeks since I recorded, and what's been going on? So obviously in my last video, I showed you my finish of my chatelaine, the King's Vegetable Garden. And, you know, I worked on that for 100 and something days straight. It was officially 111, but I had actually worked on it a few days before that. So we rounded out to 115. But after that big push and being completely focused on getting that done, I haven't really known what to do with myself since then. So I've sort of been flitting from thing to thing to thing and hadn't really settled on much of anything. So, but I thought before too much time went by, I would sit down and make a video and show you what I've been working on. And I apologize if I'm a little distracted. Things have been, as usual, a little nuts at work, and my ability to focus and make decisions is a little limited right now. For example, Eric has been asking me, where do you want to go to eat for your birthday? Because my birthday is coming up in a couple of weeks. Where do you want to go to dinner? And I'm like, I don't know. No clue. So, like I have to make decisions all day long at work, and right now I don't have any room for any more decisions. So in my head. So we'll see. It will be a surprise. I will just probably tell him on the day, just go here. We'll see. But my boss quit. So if that tells you anything, my boss quit. So things are up in the air again. So, let's see where to start. So after I finished stitching on Mystery 9, I had some stitching that I needed to do for an exchange. So, Tracy P set up a Christmas in July swap, which I decided to participate in, even though I am not typically a fan of swaps, exchanges, etc. Only because it puts a lot of unnecessary pressure on myself, and I tend to overthink it and freak out about it. But I decided, why not? So, so I signed up for that, and I had basically, you know, everything sort of figured out for my partner, except for, since it was a Christmas in July swap, I wanted to stitch her a Christmas ornament, and she actually has 2 daughters, and so then I just kind of thought, well, maybe I'll just stitch an ornament for each of them. So my partner was Sarah from Bright Stitcher. She has a Flosstube channel, and it was fun doing the exchange because I spent a lot of time stalking her and binging on all of her Flosstube videos. So it was nice to finally have the reveal that that I was her partner, so that I could stalk her publicly, I guess. So I ended up stitching 2 ornaments for her. So that's what I immediately went from finishing up Mystery 9 to stitching those 2 ornaments. And I basically just stitched them back to back because I had a deadline and had to get them out the door. So they have already arrived at her house, so I will include a photo here. And so that is what they look like. I stitched, they're both Frosted Pumpkin Stitchery designs. I think one of them was from the 2016 Just Cross Stitch ornament issue, and I think the other one was from 2015. They were like in back-to-back issues. I mostly did them in the called for colors. I did change a couple of little things, and I think the one with Santa called for Whisper for his beard and stuff, and I just didn't use that. So, but I think they turned out really cute, and I'm really happy with how they look. And I love that, you know, baker's twine, that red and white striped stuff that I used for the little hangers. So I did those, which was fun. And I thought I would share with you what my partner sent to me. So for the exchange, we had to send things in certain categories. So one of the things was something Christmassy. And so this is what she sent me. It's this sweet little clay ornament of a flamingo with a surfboard and little flip-flops and a Santa hat. And on the back it says Christmas in July Swap 2018. So my partner's name was Steph. Isn't that cute? So that was the something Christmassy. And then she, one of the other pieces was something ridiculous in a frame. And so this is what she put in a frame for me. Too funny. And then, let me see, so something Christmassy, something in a frame, something off your wish list, something you make. So each of us shared our 1, 2, 3 stitch wish list. And so she gave me this design from the Scarlet House that has been on my wish list, well, my mental wish list forever. And it's hard to read. It's the Coverlet Berry Scissor Tray. And the tray itself actually came from Hobby Lobby. And so months and months and months ago, I found one on the clearance rack and snagged it up because I was like, I'm probably never gonna find one of these. So I've had the tray for a long time, even though I didn't have the pattern. Because that's, you know, typical Michelle. So, but I just love this little design. I love the little wool felt strawberries. I just think it's darling. And so she also kitted it up for me with the called for threads and the fabric. Isn't that pretty? I just think they're beautiful. So the called for fabric is 40 count straw flower, which is just, you know, pretty neutral. And then 2 Gentle Arts threads, Country Redwood and Cast Iron Skillet, which are so pretty. Country Redwood is, I think, the color of the flowers on the border of His Eyes on the Sparrow. And then 3 Weeks Dye Works, Sage, Oscar, and Caper. And Oscar, funnily enough, is also in the border on Sparrow. So these, here, let me just hold them up against the fabric. That'll be a little simpler to see them. So just really, I'm gonna do a Nicole, just really so pretty against that fabric. So I am really looking forward to starting this, especially since I have the tray. So she gifted me with that, and then she also gifted me with 2 other pieces of fabric that were on my wish list. One of them is both Picture This Plus, and so one of them is Nocturne, 40 count. And this is an 8 by 12 piece, which is perfect for a smallish design. I just love it. It's looking more gray than blue on the screen. It is kind of a blue gray. Hard to tell in this light, but it is a blue gray and it's beautiful. So I'm really excited to do something with that. And then the other piece of fabric, I've already started something on, so I will show that to you in a minute. So that's what she sent me. I love everything. I'm so thrilled with it, and I am so glad that I decided to take part in the swap. It was a fun swap. And like I said, it was really, I don't normally do swaps, but I had fun with this one, and I had fun getting to know Sarah, and vicariously, of course, and putting things together for her. And then, of course, it was a fun surprise to get my package from Steph, as well as see what everybody else got. So it was fun. It was like every day that people's stuff showed up, it was just a fun little unboxing. So let me get all this back in here before somebody runs off with it. Okay, so that was really the first. Oh, sorry, I have tweaked my back somehow, and so every time I move wrong, I get this sharp shooting pain. Okay, I'm gonna try to stay still. Wow. Okay. So that was the first thing that I worked on after I finished Mystery 9. And then the other thing that happened is I took a big look at my closet that has where I keep all my stash and supplies and stitching and whatever in there, and realized that it, you know, it just becomes kind of a hellhole after a while, and stuff just is just, it's out of control, sadly. So I decided one of the things that I want to do is start trying to finish the projects that I have that are in there, not just stitching projects, but some finishing that I have. You know, I had some broken jewelry, you know, things like that. And so I started kind of on an effort to try to clear some things out of that closet. And obviously there's a lot in there, so there's a lot more to go. But one of the first things that I did is that I had 2 bracelets of Eric's that needed to be restrung. So I restrung one of them, and the second one I attempted to restring, but I'm putting it on, I'm watching Ramsey's because he's like nosing around my projects that I have here. I'm putting them on elastic, you know, that elastic cording, and the other bracelet I had like 4 beads that would not, the holes were too small to go over the elastic cording. So we need to go and get a few more beads so that I can, you know, that have bigger holes so that I can finish that bracelet. So that one's almost done, but I got one totally done. He had a necklace that needed to be repaired, so I repaired that. And then I had some finishing of my own to do, so I started working on that. And I have a little box that I keep kind of that stuff in. So it had his bracelets in it, it had his necklace in it, it had some Christmas ornaments in it that needed to be finished. So the first one that I picked up that was in there was my Blackbird Designs Joy ornament. So I stitched this several years ago. I had actually stitched it for a Guild ornament exchange, and then I restitched it for myself. And it's been stitched for a while now, and I just love it. The only thing that it was lacking, like it was sewn together. I can't sit like that. It was sewn together. It was stuffed. All that I needed to do was sew the chenille on it. So it now has the chenille on it and the little hanger. And I'm thrilled with it. I love this ornament. So Blackbird Designs, this was in the Just Cross Stitch ornament issue a while ago. I don't know which issue. I'll put it in the show notes. And it called for Belle Soie silk. I was not buying 9 Belle Soie silks for an ornament. Not gonna happen. So I did my own conversion to over-dyed cottons, which I would be happy to share if anybody wants that. But I just love it. I think it's so pretty. So now this is finished and can finally be checked off the list. I have 2 other ornaments that just need the cording sewn on as well. That are also in that box. So those are going to be kind of the next up things that I work on. And then I have a pumpkin that I think it was like a Brenda Gervais pattern or something for these, you know, white pumpkins. Maybe, it's been so long, I don't know. So a friend of mine gifted me with like the, you know, the top and bottom fabrics that already had the interfacing attached to it. There was some white cording so that, you know, so there it's circles. You sew those circles together, which I did a while ago. You fill it up with crushed walnut shells, which I did a while ago. And then it has sat in my closet, needing me to hand stitch that little opening closed for like years. I don't know how long, but a long time. So I got it out and I sewed up that little closed up that little opening. And the next step is to take the cording that she gave me, and you basically, you know, wrap it around the pumpkin to make the lobes, and then you attach a pumpkin stem to the top of it. So I have my pumpkin stem. I cannot find the cording. So it's around here someplace. I just have not laid hands on it yet. Otherwise that pumpkin would be finished. So I worked on that. And then the other thing that I did, which I should have brought down to show you, I also made a ring box for Eric out of a cigar box. And I posted photos of it up on Instagram. It was actually, we got the idea from Pinterest, and I did it slightly differently, but yeah, I will probably post photos of that on my blog, kind of the steps that I took. But it turned out really good. I'm very happy with it. And it was another thing that was off my list. So, but we needed to make him some sort of a ring box because the jewelry box that he has, the rings sit up top and then it's got a lid, a glass, you know, lid that closes. But some of his rings are really high profile and so the lid won't close all the way. So we wanted something that was a little bit deeper so that it would fit his rings and fit a little more, you know, than what he had room for. So I did that too. So I'm slowly kind of working through what I'm calling the closet project. So if you see me talk about it online, on Instagram or whatever, that's what I'm talking about in my closet projects. And while I'm talking a little bit about stash too, I thought I would share. So last night was the Tudor Rose Sampler Guild meeting, and our program was a magic check-in, and so magic stands for my annual Good Intentions contract. So I have 2 magic projects that I, you know, signed up and with the intent that I would finish them this year. And so Mystery 9 is one of those projects and it's done. The other project is Anniversaries of the Heart, which I have not touched at all this year. I'm not sure I will or not. I did dig it out today. When I gave my check-in report last night, I said, you know, not only is it not something that I have worked on, but it is not even in my stitching basket. It is in one of the archive buckets. So I did actually get it out today. Not promising anything, but we'll see. And so for everybody that is participating in Magic, we each got a little surprise gift from the board, which was really nice. And then those that were not participating in Magic but brought one of their whips to show, they also got a goodie. So in the goodie bag was a needle book with a Tudor Rose on it that they made. On the back it says Tudor Rose Sampler Guild, and then on the inside it has a piece of wool felt, and it's got a 26 needle and a 28 needle, and these are Bowen needles, which I thought was very nice. And then also a skein of Water Lilies silk from the Karen collection, and this color is Meadow. And it is mostly green, but you can see it's got some pinks. It has a little bit of almost kind of a brown maybe. So it does kind of look like, you know, a meadow with grass and flowers. Very pretty. So, and I love Water Lily silk. So that was fun to get as a little encouragement gift for working on our projects. So, so let's see, what have I worked on? So after I finished the 2 ornaments, I decided that I would go back and work on His Eye is on the Sparrow by Heartstring Samplery. I had sort of tossed this aside because I was having problems with my deer, if you remember. Not only did I have to rip him out and restitch him because I had an error, but I was having problems with the color of his body because the color that it calls for is putty, and my skein of putty blends in exactly with my fabric. So that was a no-go. So I had tried several different options. In fact, well, when I picked it up, I tried several different options. In fact, what I did was I looked to see what the DMC equivalent was for Weeks putty, and the color that it gave me was like DMC 612, which is a vastly different color than what I think putty is supposed to look like. like way darker. So I was surprised by that. But that didn't work. So it was just too dark. So what I ended up doing was I took one of the other colors that I have pulled, and let me see which one it is. I think it's Old Hickory. And the reason that I picked that was because it was already another color that was used, you know, in here. And after the fact, I realized that it's actually the color that is called for the deer on the other side. So one's supposed to be darker, one's supposed to be lighter. So when I get to the other side, I may just do them both the same color, or maybe I can figure something out by then and have a lighter color. So here's where I'm at. And so just a reminder, I am stitching this on 48 count, I think. And this is a linen that my friend Sylvia hand dyed for me. It's beautiful. And so really what I did was I worked on the deer and, you know, back and forth, and finally figured out a color for him, so I've started filling him in. And I think that's gonna look good. I also worked a little more on the border because I wanted to get to where the page cuts off, which is really, you know, right here at the end of the deer. So I brought my border a little farther across on the top, I brought it down a little farther on the bottom, and then I started this dividing band here. And so right underneath this is where the words go that says, you know, his eye is on the sparrow, and I know he's watching me, or whatever that is. So I'm pretty happy with how that deer is looking now, but he is going to be much darker than what he was originally intended to be, but I think it's going to be fine. So I worked on that a little bit, and then oh, I forgot to bring Jinx. Should I pause? Should I go get it? I'll go get it. Okay, I'm back. So, and I also brought my pumpkin. So here's my pumpkin. He's all ready to go. As soon as I find that cording, I can run that all the way around and turn him into something that looks a little more like a pumpkin and not a weirdly shapen pillow. So, not very impressive, I realize. So I worked on Sparrow until the 13th for dark 13 stitching, and then I decided to get Jinx out. And so here is a reminder of what that looks like fully. It's by Raise the Roof. So, and I am stitching this on Love Child by Under the Sea Fabrics, 32 count, that Christine from Stitch All the Things sent me. So there's where I'm at. So I worked on that for dark 13 stitching. I started on the ladder here, and I was filling in the moon there. I'm loving how this is looking. It's a fun little stitch. So I worked on that for dark 13 stitching, and then I don't remember, maybe I went back to Sparrow, I don't know. Anyway, but then I did Jessie Marie's anniversary sal for her 5-year Flosstube anniversary. And so it was 5 days, and so for Jessie Marie Does Stuff, you were to stitch something with a J on the first day, an M on the second day, a D on the third day, and an S on the fourth day. And then the fifth day was a wild card, and you could stitch on whatever you wanted. So for the first day, I did stitch on Jinx. So I pulled Jinx out and worked on it. And then now I'm realizing I skipped a step. Brain non-existent. So let me back up. Before Jessie Marie's Sal, I worked on Jinx for dark 13 stitching, and then I may have gone back to Sparrow, I don't remember. But around that time, Tracy P and Emily had decided, Eclectic Possessions, decided that they were going to start Moira Blackburn's 3 Things sampler. And they were like, you know, hey, we're going to start this tonight. And I said, oh, I have that chart. I've had that chart in my stash a long time. So here's the benefit for working from home. I was like, let me go see if I have fabric. And sure enough, I have a piece of fabric in my stash. Literally a piece of fabric in my stash that was probably for something, but I don't remember what it was at this time. 36 count, and it would fit. So I was like, bingo, I'm on it. So I pulled the threads and started it that night with Emily and Tracy. And I think Krisha is doing it with us, and I want to say Trisha maybe, Yanni maybe. I'll have to look. Anyway, so if you want to join, please feel free. So this is my start. So this is on 36 count Lakeside something. If I had to guess, I would say it's light exemplar. And I started off stitching it 1/2 and decided I hated that. I hated the look of it. It was, the coverage of it was horrible. And I love stitching with 1 thread rather than 2 any day, every day. But I like doing that on 40 count. 36 count, part of the reason I never use 36 count if I can help it, and probably the reason that this is still in my stash, is because I hate that it's like an in-between size. Do I do 2 threads because that's too thick? Do I do 1 thread because that's not enough? I hate 36 count. Seriously. My Village of Hawk Run Hollow is on 36 count, and I'm doing it with 1 thread, and it seems fine. My Shores of Hawk Run Hollow is on 36 count, and it is not fine. And in fact, when I started Shores of Hawk Run Hollow, I had started it with 1/2 and decided that I didn't like the coverage. And then a friend of mine, a blogging friend of mine, had started something, I don't remember what, and she was stitching it on 36 count, and she was doing 2/2 because she liked the coverage better. And I was like, awesome, I'm totally doing that. So I ripped out what I had stitched and I restarted with 2/2. And I thought it was great. Until some other people saw it and then, you know, gave me a bunch of, you're not supposed to use 2 threads over 2. You were supposed to use 1/2 on 36 count. That's too thick. Why are you doing that? Blah, blah. And so after I went home and was upset for a good amount of time and threw that project in the never to be seen again pile, I did go back and I ripped out all of the 2/2 and restarted it 1/2. I have a block and a half done. It may or may not ever see the light of day again, but I'm here to tell you that you do what you want to do on your piece and what you're happy with. And the flip side of that is, don't tell people what to do or what not to do, or that it's wrong, especially if they're happy with it. I mean, really? Like, I'm still upset about that. And that was probably 5 years ago. I'm still upset by it. And I felt embarrassed and yeah, I felt intimidated, embarrassed that I was making such a huge faux pas that I needed to be, reprimanded for. And I may or may not ever touch that piece again. So I'm stitching this 2/2 on 36 count. And I don't give a crap if that's not the way to do it, because it's the way I'm doing it and I'm happy with it. So I am changing the colors. As if you are familiar with this piece, you can probably tell. This piece is very pastel. So it has some very pastel pinks, very pastel blues, some lavender, etc. Nope. So some of this I am doing with the called for DMC, and some of it I have converted to overdyes, and I am just sort of picking my colors as I go. And I'm really happy with it. And I love Emily. She's doing her own color conversion, and hers looks awesome and like totally different from this one. So my colors are much darker and more jewel toned. Yeah, I love it. Like this flower, this teal flower, that's the called for colors. This, I darkened this up. And then I added some red. I made this pink a much darker pink. The vine is the called for colors. So yeah, I'm loving it. So for the first day of Jessie Marie Does Stuff, I worked on J for Jinx. And then the second day was M, so I went back to working on this for Moira. And then D for Does, I decided to get out Dutch Beauty and work on Dutch Beauty a little bit. So here's Dutch Beauty. Also my own color conversion. I'm calling this Dark Beauty. And this is on fabric that I dyed myself. It's on 40 count mallow that I dyed with Rit dye. And it is gray. That's reading maybe a little purpley, but it is gray. So you may remember the last time I worked on this, I did my roosters, which I'm super happy with. And so that night I brought my border up a little bit further. So this is page U, and I think I started on page N, maybe. So I brought this border up, and then I started the green grass here. So happy with it. So not a ton of progress, but moving on to a new page, which is kind of exciting, right? So that was my D for Jessie Marie Does. And then for the S, I decided that the other piece of fabric that I got in the exchange would be perfect for a piece that I had been wanting to start for the Salem, Summer of Salem, Sal, whatever we're calling it, in the, I thought my tag was on here, it's not. in the Bewitched Stitches group or the Stitchers Coven group. So I had picked this chart out to do it and just had never started it because I was working on Mystery 9. So I think the sale goes through the end of August. So I decided to go ahead and start this. So I took my other piece of fabric that I got from my exchange partner, which was 40 count Picture This Plus Dapple, and also same size as the other one. And so I started Salem Village by Primitive Needle. And I love this. I love how it's looking. So the chart is, it is charted for Floramil silks, which are Gloriana silks, made by Gloriana. And I don't have Floramil silks, so I decided to just do my own overdyed conversion. So I did that. One of the main colors that it calls for is a color called, I think, Thistle. And when I looked that up, and that was the color for the words here, and then the 1692. Now I did the 1692 just in like a charcoal. But when I looked up the thread online, it is kind of a variegated green, purple, brown. Hard to describe. But as I was looking for, because the first color gold that I chose really was not working. And what I really wanted was whiskey. I just didn't want to dig it out of the project it was in, but I did. I went back and found it. And while I was looking for other threads, I found a thread in my stash that is, I think, Weeks Basil. And it is a variegated green and purple. Why it's called basil, I don't know. Maybe the flowers on basil are purple? I don't know. But anyway, so that's what I ended up using for the word Salem Village. And it's hard to tell in this light, but it's really kind of subtle, the variegation between purple and green. But I really like how it looks on this fabric. So I'm excited that I found that, and I'd never used it before, so I thought, good deal. Now I can use this thread I've had sitting here. So I worked on Salem Village and did that for the S in Jessie Marie Does Stuff. And then I also worked on it a second night for the wild card stitching because I was just having fun with it. And because since I didn't like the color gold that I had used, I wanted to rip that out and start with the whiskey. And I wanted to try out that basil. So I did a couple nights on this. So happy Flossiversary, Jessie. And then, like I said, that's for the Salem Village, or the Summer of Salem sale. And so after I worked on that for a couple nights, I went back to this, and this is pretty much all that I've worked on since then. I'm just really enjoying it. I'm loving the colors, I'm loving how it looks, and I'm just having a good time with it. So I'm just gonna stick with that for a while. I don't know how long I will keep going on it, but I guess as long as I feel like it. So I think that's it for me. I did, so in one of my posts about my closet projects, one of the things that I did as part of that was to put away all my threads for Mystery 9. And I mentioned that my favorite part of a project is putting all the stuff away afterwards. It's really, I hate starting new projects because there's always some angst about, am I starting in the right place? Do I have the right fabric? Are my threads right? You know, blah, 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 blah. So it's a little stressful for me to start new projects, which is why that is not my favorite part of starting a project. But I really love putting the supplies away. I don't know why, but I do. there's just something very rewarding about that for me. So I was putting my supplies away for Mystery 9, and Pemberley commented on my post and said, you know, if that is your favorite part of a project, why don't you talk about, you know, kind of how you go through that, what your process is. So I did record a little video of what I did when I put away the threads for the 2 frosted pumpkin pieces. So if I have room, I will attach that to the end of this video. If not, I may just make it its own separate video, but hopefully you find that helpful. So that's it for me. Thank you for commenting and subscribing. I really appreciate it. And I will be back soon and we'll both find out together what I work on. Thanks, guys. Bye.